We save up all year dreaming of that perfect escape, a week of sun, adventure, and a break from reality. We trust our tour guides, our hotels, our instincts. But for some, that dream vacation becomes a one-way ticket to a nightmare. They don't die peacefully. They die in agony, in terror, in ways so horrific it's hard to comprehend. These aren't quick accidents. These are agonizing descents into oblivion. From being boiled alive in volcanic springs to being torn apart by mobs, these stories reveal what happens when paradise turns into a death trap. Case 1. A walk off the path. Our first story takes us to the otherworldly landscape of Yellowstone National Park, a place of breathtaking beauty and primordial danger. On June 7, 2016, 23-year-old Colin Nathaniel Scott from Portland, Oregon, was visiting the park with his sister Sable. They were at the Norris Geyser Basin, a place famous for having the hottest and most acidic thermal features in the park. It's a landscape dotted with boardwalks for a reason. The ground is a fragile crust over a boiling subterranean cauldron. But Colin and Sable were looking for something more, an illegal thrill known as hot potting, soaking in the park's natural thermal pools. Ignoring numerous prominent signs warning of extreme danger in scalding water, they ventured about 225 yards off the safety of the boardwalk. Sable recorded on her phone as Colin approached a specific pool, reaching down to test the temperature. In that one fateful moment, the thin, fragile mineral crust he was standing on gave way. He slipped and fell headfirst into the churning, acidic water. The pain would have been instantaneous and absolute. The water in these springs can exceed 200 degrees Fahrenheit, near boiling even at that altitude. But it wasn't just the heat. The water was the consistency of stomach acid. Within seconds, Colin's body was being simultaneously cooked and dissolved. A park ranger later noted that the physiological shock would have been so immense, causing a rapid collapse and likely loss of consciousness within a minute or two. But those moments would have been pure, unadulterated agony. Rescue efforts were immediately complicated. Rangers who arrived at the scene could see parts of Colin's body in the pool, along with his wallet and flip-flops. But a severe lightning storm rolled in, forcing them to suspend the recovery. When they returned the next day, there was almost nothing left to recover. The combination of the intense heat and the powerful acid had completely broken down his body overnight. All that remained were a few personal effects. The official report is chilling in its clinical description, but the reality is a horror story. Colin Scott wasn't just a tourist who made a mistake. He was a young man who, in a quest for a forbidden experience, was erased from existence by one of nature's most unforgiving forces. Case 2. Paradise's Hidden Darkness. In October 2013, Sébastien Judelet, a 38-year-old French postal worker and father, was on what should have been the holiday of a lifetime. He was in Nosy Be, a stunning resort island off the coast of Madagascar, a place known for its pristine beaches and turquoise waters. But this paradise quickly turned into a living hell. A local boy had gone missing, and a dark rumor began to poison the air. Foreigners were to blame, specifically foreign pedophiles. Panic and paranoia, fueled by suspicion of outsiders, escalated into vigilante hysteria. A mob of around 300 locals, armed with a thirst for their own brand of justice, seized Sébastien and another man, a Franco-Italian hotel worker named Roberto Gianfala. The men were dragged to a beach, beaten mercilessly, and subjected to a makeshift people's trial. There was no evidence, no investigation, just pure, unadulterated mob fury. Witnesses reported hearing Sébastien screaming, "I am innocent," moments before the unthinkable happened. The mob doused both men in gasoline and set them on fire. The pain of being burned alive is considered by medical experts to be the most excruciating a human can endure. The flames would have seared his skin, ignited his clothing, and superheated the air he was breathing, scorching his airway and lungs from the inside out. Death would have come from a combination of shock, massive burns, and respiratory failure, but it would not have been quick. It was a death by torture, carried out in public on a sandy beach. In the aftermath, the charred bodies were simply left on the beach as a gruesome warning. Images of the scene shocked the world. Later, a police investigation found absolutely no proof that Sebastian or Roberto had anything to do with the boy's disappearance. In fact, it was suggested the boy had simply drowned. The incident exposed the deep-seated problem of mob justice in Madagascar, but for Sébastien Joudelet, a father on vacation, it was too late. He traveled to paradise and was consumed by its hidden darkness. Case 3. A desert inferno. Adventure tourism promises thrills, but sometimes the thrill comes at the ultimate price. On May 4, 2022, a French family, 2 parents and their daughter, were on an off-road buggy excursion near Tiznacht, Morocco. It was marketed as a fun, adrenaline-filled way to explore the desert, but during the tour, their buggy veered off the track and overturned. The crash damaged the fuel system, and a fire erupted with terrifying speed. Trapped by their seatbelts in the vehicle's roll cage, the family was caught in a furnace. As the flames engulfed the passenger compartment, they would have suffered horrific burns while simultaneously inhaling dense toxic smoke. Their options narrowed to an impossible choice: be burned alive or suffocate. It was a death of unimaginable horror and helplessness. First responders arrived to find the buggy still ablaze with the 3 tourists already dead inside. The incident sparked an investigation into the safety standards of local tour operators, with critics pointing out that many companies fail to properly maintain their vehicles or adequately brief tourists on emergency procedures. For this family, their shared adventure became a shared tomb, a fiery end in the middle of the Moroccan desert. Case 4. The silent killer. Sometimes, the most painful death is the one that creeps in silently while you sleep. In late October 2022, 3 American friends, Candace Florence, Jordan Marshall, and another friend, were in Mexico City for the vibrant Dia de los Muertos celebrations. They rented an apartment in the La Rosita neighborhood through a major online platform. On the night of their deaths, Candace called her boyfriend, saying she felt sick, like she'd been drugged. The call cut off. Her boyfriend, frantic, tried repeatedly to call back, but no one answered. He contacted the Airbnb host and begged them to check on the group, and eventually called the police. When authorities finally entered the apartment, they found all 3 tourists unresponsive. They were already dead. The killer wasn't a person, it was a faulty gas heater. It had been leaking colorless, odorless carbon monoxide into the apartment. CO poisoning is a silent, insidious death. It binds to the hemoglobin in your blood, preventing it from carrying oxygen. Victims essentially suffocate from the inside out. They would have experienced headaches, dizziness, and confusion, explaining why Candace felt drugged before losing consciousness. As they lay in bed, their brains and hearts were slowly starved of oxygen, leading to irreversible organ damage and death. The tragedy highlighted a massive, deadly loophole in the vacation rental industry. A study has shown that most CO poisonings in hotels and motels could be prevented by simple, inexpensive in-room detectors. The families of the victims have since filed wrongful death lawsuits, demanding that rental platforms mandate these detectors in all listings. For Candace, Jordan, and their friend, a trip to celebrate life ended in a silent, preventable death, suffocated by an invisible poison in their sleep. Case 5. A shark's hunger. On September 6, 2022, 58-year-old Sharon DiPlacido from Pennsylvania was on a Royal Caribbean cruise with her family. They booked an independent snorkeling excursion off Rose Island in the Bahamas. It was a picture-perfect day. The water was clear and the family was enjoying the vibrant coral reefs, but the idyllic scene was shattered in an instant. A bull shark, one of the most aggressive shark species, appeared and attacked Sharon. The force of the bite would have been immense, tearing through tissue and bone. Bull sharks are known for their powerful jaws and bump-and-bite attacks. The initial strike to her left side would have caused massive, catastrophic injuries. Tour staff and her family pulled her onto the boat and raced towards the shore, but the damage was done. She had sustained what police later described as serious injuries to the left side of her body, which is a clinical understatement for having huge chunks of flesh torn away, severing major arteries. She likely died from a combination of massive blood loss and traumatic shock long before they reached land. What makes this death even more tragic is that this exact spot was known to be dangerous. In 2019, another American tourist, Jordan Lindsay, was killed by sharks in the same area. Critics question whether tour operators are doing enough to warn customers of the known risks. For Sharon's family, a day of fun in the sun turned into a real-life horror movie, a brutal, bloody encounter that left them helpless as they watched their loved one die. Case 6. The 600-meter fall. For many travelers, climbing a volcano is the ultimate adventure. For 26-year-old Brazilian tourist Juliana Marins, that adventure was Mount Rinjani in Indonesia. In June 2025, she was on a multi-day trek with a guide and other travelers. The views are dramatic, but the paths are treacherous, narrow ridges with steep drop-offs covered in loose volcanic scree. On June 21st, near the summit, Juliana made a fatal misstep. She slipped and fell. It wasn't a short fall. She tumbled 600 meters, nearly 2,000 feet, down into the crater basin. The violence of a fall like that is almost impossible to imagine. She would have hit multiple rock outcrops on the way down, causing massive trauma, multiple fractures, crushed organs, severe head injuries, and catastrophic internal bleeding. Survival beyond the first few moments would have been impossible. A massive 3-day search and rescue operation was launched. Crews used drones and ropes in the extremely difficult and dangerous terrain. Finally, a thermal drone located her lifeless body. For Juliana, an avid traveler and social media user, her quest for a breathtaking photo and an epic story ended in the most brutal way imaginable. Her death serves as a grim reminder that on the world's highest peaks, one wrong step is all it takes. Case 7. Feeding frenzy. Our final story is perhaps the most primal and terrifying. In November 2023, a 47-year-old German tourist, known only as Nina, was participating in a professional shark feeding dive at Tiger Beach in the Bahamas. This isn't casual snorkeling, it's a world-famous high-adrenaline activity where experienced divers kneel on the ocean floor while guides use bait to lure massive tiger sharks for close encounters. It's marketed as safe as long as the rules are followed, but sharks are not performers, and on this day, the show went horribly wrong. During the dive, one large tiger shark became fixated on Nina. A guide reportedly tried to push the shark away, but it was relentless. It clamped onto her, its serrated teeth tearing through her wetsuit, her buoyancy vest, and her flesh. The scent of blood in the water triggered a feeding frenzy. Other sharks joined in, ripping and tearing at her body. According to a detailed account later posted online by one of the guides, she was essentially dismembered and consumed underwater within moments. It was a death of unimaginable violence, a diver torn apart by the very creatures she paid to see up close. The incident reignited a fierce debate in the diving community about the ethics and safety of baited shark dives. These dives intentionally condition apex predators to associate humans with food. For Nina, that association proved fatal. She went looking for a thrill and became part of the food chain. From the acidic pools of Yellowstone to the shark-infested waters of the Bahamas, these stories are a brutal reminder that death doesn't take a vacation. Whether it's through human error, mechanical failure, or the raw, untamable power of nature, the world is full of painful ways to die. The line between a dream holiday and a waking nightmare is sometimes terrifyingly thin. Thanks for watching. If you found this video illuminating, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Until next time, stay safe out there.